Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Let's Talk Marvel Fan Theories podcast. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Katie, and we're two sisters and borderline obsessed Marvel fans who have been following the Marvel Cinematic Universe closely for years. And now we want to share our MCU discussions with you.
We chat about our own predictions and theories, plus some of our favorites from online, and our reactions to all of the Marvel content that's considered MCU canon, including the Disney Plus shows and the movies, as well as the Marvel news you need to know. Well, guys, we are officially less than a week out from the premiere of the Hawkeye event series, or six episode event series, or whatever they're calling it. So it is time to do our usual predictions episode. We're super excited for this show to come out and to get more content on a regular basis, because it's been quite a minute since we've had a show coming out weekly that wasn't animated. So super pumped for that. Katie, give me your initial thoughts. What are you most excited for Hawkeye?
Now, you know me. I am a big boots on the ground person. At the end of the day, those are my favorite. And I know, I'm not gonna lie, I love Wanda. She's one of my favorites. I mean, not Brewers. I love the whole, having powers kind of thing. I do. But down to the core, I am a boots on the ground person. I've always liked Black Widow, Bucky, all of them. And I am very much looking forward to Hawkeye. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm looking forward to Kate Bishop. I think she looks awesome. And I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't always a Haley Steinfeld. I went through it. I was like, I don't really like you. She looks really good in it. I think, her character's, I think she's doing well with the character from what I see. And I am pretty excited to finally get a little bit more on Hawkeye himself, because unfortunately, and I will admit, I might have added to it, where it was what was the need for Hawkeye? I think a lot of people always were like, what does he do? Especially when you already had Black Widow. And I think this really gives more of a background. It gives a background on when he was Ronin, or Roman. Was he
Ronin?
Ronin. They all sound the same. And so, I'm pretty excited to touch on that aspect, because obviously, that was probably my favorite part of Hawkeye once he went real dark during Endgame. So, I'm excited. I'm excited to see it and, see what it plays into, because obviously we know Yelena's going to make an appearance, but she hasn't made an appearance in the trailers, which I would understand why, but I'm excited to see where she does.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited about. I think it's the best kind of whiplash to go from something like the Eternals, which is so literally not of this planet, to something so small, what seems so small in comparison in Hawkeye. And I was rewatching the trailers earlier in preparation for this episode, and it struck me how a lot of what he's going to be dealing with in this show are the consequences of his time as Ronin, which, to your point, is something I think really interesting and something really just touched upon. And now I kind of understand why they didn't expand more upon that in Endgame, was because, they had already obviously had this in plan to really take a deep dive into his time as Ronin and what he did. So I'm really excited about that aspect as well. I'm not gonna lie, I'm excited to go back to New York. I think in a lot of ways New York is where it all started. I mean, in many literal senses, it's where Cap's from. He's Brooklyn born and bred. But also it's where the Avengers first got together and where they had their epic battle with Loki. So I think coming back to that setting will in a way kind of bring us all full circle, because this is probably the last show or movie centered on the original six. So it's kind of nice that they all got together in New York, and now the last piece of content we're going to get is also centered in New York. So I've been thinking about that. And also just to your point, Kate Bishop. I mean, I too was not a huge Haley Steinfeld fan before this, but just even in the trailer, she's started to pull me over to her side. So I'm really excited to see more of her and how she takes the character in this show and moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for her, and like I said, I did bring up Yelena, because we obviously, Black Widow end credit scene. And I just think, like I said about Hawkeye, and you brought up New York, and actually, I did want to say, you did bring up about the original six. We do now, and can confirm, we will be seeing more of Bruce Banner, though. So...
Oh, and Thor, what am I saying? But
Yeah, well, show-wise, though, we know Hulk for sure is going to be in She-Hulk.
Yeah, and I think it's different now, let me rephrase my previous statement. This is the last time we're going to get a show or movie on one that we haven't seen before, in the sense that, he was the last piece of the puzzle. Everybody has now gotten, Black Widow got her movie, Cap and Iron Man and got his their trilogy. Thor got his forquel or whatever you would call it, you know. Even Hulk got, you know, his movie, if you will, and now he's going to be in She-Hulk, which is kind of his, you know, a little bit more on him too. And honestly, Ragnarok, he stole the show in Ragnarok anyway. So, you know, this is the last new piece of content for an Avenger that has not gotten kind of their solo spotlight moment. So I'm going to amend my previous statement. Still a good circle. I like that little metaphor, but I'm going to put a little caveat on there.
Well, and I think Hawkeye is going to be interesting in the sense of, too, it's another passing of the torch. Mm-hmm. So it's very similar to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier in the sense of it's going to be not quite as direct, or I should say it's going to be more direct because it's obviously Sam was coming into trying to be Captain America and Bucky was essentially pushing him. It wasn't so much Steve was there, like, essentially training him or anything. But, yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to say, like, I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see Hawkeye out in an effective way, I think, because, I mean, after Endgame, after what happened, I mean, obviously everyone, it should have been Clint. But I think it'll be a good way. And I really hope they kind of touch on a little more of the loss of Natasha, because obviously Elena's going to get brought into it. Obviously, we see why Elena's getting brought into it at one point. So I really hope they talk a little bit more on the loss for both Yelena and Hawkeye, since I think we saw only parts of that in Endgame, and obviously we only had the end credit scene of Yelena going to her sister's grave. So I kind of want to see more. I also would love to understand, like, did she get the grave? Like, I know that's the most minor thing, but I kind of want to know, like, was Clint responsible for the grave? Was Yelena responsible for the grave? Like, I kind of want a little bit more on that, and that just might be a personal thing because I love Natasha, but it's also the connecting character between the two of them. So
I definitely think we're going to see more about the loss. I think, you know, I think Clint probably feels a lot of guilt. Obviously, you could see that when she didn't come back, and they have that whole funeral, non-funeral thing that they do where each one of the Avengers kind of shows one of the stages of grief. Like, a lot of people have pointed that out. So, I mean, you can obviously tell that he's absolutely demolished, but it will be interesting when Yelena confronts him, because she's almost like the personification of his guilt. Like, he feels responsible, but here's a person who loved Natasha as much, if not more than he did, telling him, you're the reason my sister's dead. And obviously she doesn't know the full story, but it's interesting the way that her character is going to come into this kind of as that voice in his head that's repeating all of the negative things that he's probably already saying about himself as he tries to move on and live life with his family.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, I am intrigued to understand the sense of the villains, because I think I don't know what trailer, but I'm going to just say in general, in one of the trailers, I believe it's Hawkeye himself who is saying, you know, I made a lot of enemies when I was who I was, and now it's coming, like something of the lines of them, like now it's coming back. I am a little intrigued, because not that I don't believe he made plenty of enemies here in America, but when we did see him, he wasn't in America.
I actually wanted to bring that up.
That. Yeah.
So he says something where he's like, in this city, and I thought he meant New York, because obviously it takes place in New York. I mean, you see them on the Rockefeller skating rink and all that. So I'm wondering, you know, you and I had both assumed it was East Asia based on the signage that he was standing in front of when she came to get him, when Natasha came to get him in Endgame. But now I'm wondering if he's saying New York, was it like a Chinatown or like a Koreatown maybe where he was? And we assumed because of the character, not characters in the sense of like comic book characters, but the written characters on the signs, that it was East Asia, but perhaps it's actually kind of one of those neighborhoods in New York that's very prevalent within Asian culture. That's kind of what struck me when I was rewatching the trailers. I was like, oh, if he's saying this happened in New York, then I'm wondering if it happened in one of those communities.
Well, and it also makes sense just because, not that I'm saying like he doesn't necessarily have the resources, but at the same time, I mean, a lot of his resources came from S.H.I.E.L.D., and obviously S.H.I.E.L.D. was not, I mean, already present as it was, let alone anyone who was there. A lot of them were dusted. So I really, like, that other part of me was like, I don't really know how he ended up halfway across the world.
Yeah.
So it would make a lot of sense. And I mean, if they were in Avengers compound, they were only 2-3 hours away from New York City. So it would have still warranted a trip, but it wouldn't have necessarily
It would also explain how she got to him so quickly.
Yeah.
Because,
I mean, to be fair, there was
point,
like a time, there could have been a time jump, and we like didn't like.
Yeah, I just felt like, I don't know. It seemed a little. She didn't seem phased by the idea of going to see him. Which now, if we're thinking he's in the city and she's upstate a few hours away, like that kind of makes a little more sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm just reaching because I'm now kind of pivoting what we thought earlier, but I don't know. It does make a lot of sense if it were to be in like a Chinatown or a Koreatown or something like that. Just makes a lot of sense. So I wouldn't be surprised if kind of that's where we were kind of a little off before.
Yeah. But, I mean, here's my thing is, like I said, I brought up the villains a little bit because I'm intrigued to understand who they are. I'm intrigued because if we think back to that, and I don't, I mean, I will love to make it about Black Widow, but I don't want to make it about Black Widow. If we think back to that end credit scene, obviously we see that Valentina?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm saying that right because it's been a little while. Is putting Yelena up to the task to go after Hawkeye, which means she's got ties to these people. So there's a bigger concept there. And so obviously a lot of the people I'm thinking we're seeing are not anyone necessarily important. They're kind of just
henchmen.
Yeah. My thoughts, and I don't want to like skip over what I think Hawkeye's going to be about, but I think it's very clear. Like in these kind of things, I feel like I don't expect a lot of twists and turns.
Yeah.
Because of the sense.
I mean, I think they've been and I've been talking a lot because as we're recording now on a Tuesday night, at a little after 8:30, the Spider-Man trailer is coming out, right? About 20 minutes ago. So right as we finish this recording, we're gonna check that out.
Oh, God.
But I bring it up because so many of the trailers recently have been so misleading. Like Shang-Chi completely misdirected us. I mean, the Eternals absolutely was a 180 from what we thought it was going to be. So I guess I'm hesitant to say, even with this show, that it's clear because I think we may think so, but over the course of 6 episodes, I wouldn't be surprised if they really, really shock us. So I guess, I don't know. I mean, maybe you're feeling more confident than I am. I just feel like Marvel's been on such a twisty twist lately that I'm afraid to say any confidence.
Here's my thought process on why I say that, though, is only because the biggest twist I expect involves Yelena. And Hawkeye is one of the few things we have gotten a proper end credit scene for prior to it coming out.
Yeah.
Because I'm
actually kind of surprised they did that in a way.
Because, first off, not only was it shocking to us at Black Widow, but had they held off on that end credit scene and brought her into the show, that would have been that moment.
Yeah.
Of like, oh my God.
But if we're going to talk about the oh my God moment, can I give you my prediction for what it's really going to be?
Yeah.
Because obviously it's not going to be Yelena. We know she's going to be in it. What I think it's going to be now, and potentially the reason that they gave away Yelena so early, is there have been a lot of rumors of them bringing Kingpin into live action.
I did see that.
Weave the web about why this is starting to seem more and more likely based on things that have been confirmed and the ongoing rumors that are out there. So, first of all, he's obviously a big New York player. If you're going to talk about the crime underground in New York and not talk about the Kingpin, I think that's a big missed opportunity. 2, and potentially most tellingly, the character Echo, who is going to be in this show, who's getting her own spin-off. Like, she's introduced in the show, and she was one of the spin-offs introduced in Disney Plus Day. She is Fisk, meaning Wilson Fisk, Kingpin's like adoptive daughter. I think he kills her father and then raises her or something along those lines. So she has a huge tie to him. And then last but not least, there's the big, and it may have come out because we haven't watched the trailer yet, but the big rumor that Charlie Cox's Daredevil is going to be in Spider-Man, and that I've seen further rumors than that they're going to reboot Daredevil with him as the lead in the next few years, because obviously people really like the Netflix show. So I just feel like there's so many clues pointing, and obviously Kingpin was a huge player in that, and I think his name is Vincent D'Onofrio, the guy from Law & Order, plays Fisk in that show, and I just think he did, I haven't seen all the shows, a little too gory for my preferences, but people love him in that role, so I wouldn't, and he's expressed that he's open to reprising it, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get a reveal, or even just like some sort of, maybe not a full reveal, because to reveal that type of character of that level in a show is kind of a big deal, but like some sort of hint that's like unmistakable that he's back, because I just think there are so many clues pointing that way that I can't imagine him not being in this show.
No, and I wouldn't be surprised, and I'm glad you brought that up, because obviously I have also been seeing it. Because, and like I said, I don't want to, like, skip around too much, but if you really think about it, a lot of the trailers just... Well, first of all, a lot of the trailers are the same types of clips.
Which they've been doing over and over again.
Right. So it's not as easy to kind of be like, okay, what's happening here? But also with boots on the ground soldiers, you can kind of put it together. You're not going to have a lot of the twists and turns with the mystical aspect of it.
Right.
Just because that's not how that usually works. And I definitely, like, I can confidently tell you, they're not going to bring any of the mystical aspect directly into Hawkeye, just because that's not the purpose of this show. Definitely a passing of the torch show, and that's what they're trying to do. But on the other side of it, it's what else will it set up? Because I can't believe that they're going to leave it at Young Avengers with Kate. Because, I mean, even look at The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They just decided to drop a Young Avenger in that show. Just, like, a little sprinkle here. And
yeah, and he was like, what, 2 minutes of screen time max in the whole show?
Exactly. And obviously, with The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that's a little different because we're still going to see Sam and Bucky return. But that was part of the idea with that, is like, okay, it gave a sprinkle of that. So I can't see them not doing more. So I would not be surprised if it's more of a hint towards Kingpin. And I want to say, because I like I said, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves in the form of MCU related things. But as of lately, the rumors have been going around that they plan to extend Tom Holland's Spider-Man. They want to give him another trilogy after this. And now, because of the form of No Way Home, I would not be surprised if they touch on more of his original type of villains. That when you think of him, you think of Tom, or you think of Spider-Man. Like, we've already seen it with Venom. You know, that's coming. And, you know,
Octopus.
If they introduce and if they introduce Kingpin here, there you go. That's a big entrance right into another movie right there. So I think I wouldn't be surprised to get the hint. I don't think we'd fully see him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has the ties with Valentina. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing, that she could be working for him. I'm wondering, because the big rumor now, and I bring this up because it does relate to Yelena, who will obviously be in the show. The rumor is that Valentina is kind of putting together the Thunderbolts.
Right.
Because obviously you have He Who Shall Not Be Named, Faux Cap, and you have Yelena, the Zemo and Red Hulk, who's turning, he hasn't turned yet, but
Captain
he's
Ross.
looking like he's going to turn, General Ross, yes.
General. I was like, Captain didn't sound right, but I remembered his last name.
And I think there's one or two other characters that we've seen or are coming. I'm trying to remember who they are, but I'm blanking.
Well, didn't we talk about Abomination at one point?
I think he might be part, but are there two Hulklings in there?
I do think there's yeah.
I don't remember.
I mean,
either
to be
way,
fair, the Thunderbolts are just like the Avengers in the form of, they kind of, they shift around who's involved, who's not involved. So yeah, Marvel's gonna take their pick.
Yeah. Either way, I say all this to say, she's putting together, obviously we've seen her with two of them now. She's theoretically putting together the Thunderbolts, so I wouldn't be surprised if this further sets up the Thunderbolts, because, you know, I think she's going to be in it. And then obviously we have Yelena. I don't know if maybe, you know, we'll catch a glimpse of Faux Cap. Like, maybe he's going to come in there. Like, I could see that possibly happening. Just as, like, even, like, not even as a big thing, but, like, or that he's going to fight, but even as, like, someone who Yelena goes to, like, you know, she's meeting up with Valentina and he's there. Like, just something, like, a little breadcrumb to show, like, not only is Valentina, like, connecting with these people, but she's connecting them with each other, and, like, it's coming.
Yeah, my only thought process, and I feel like I might have mentioned this, I can't speak, right when Black Widow had come out, is, while I do believe Yelena to, like, I wouldn't be surprised, at the same time, she's not going to take kindly to the fact that she was tricked by Valentina.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'm gonna, like, that's the only wrench I'm gonna throw in your little plan. Because I like it.
No, I was thinking about that too. I was like, as I was saying it, in the back of my mind, I was thinking about how is she gonna want to work with Valentina? I mean, I feel like, so here's my read on Yelena. I think, like her sister, she very much is willing to work with whoever is gonna get her what she wants.
Right, but once she goes after Hawkeye, I think, and realizes what has happened, like, you know what I mean? She's not gonna...
Oh, for sure, but I don't think what she really wants is to attack Hawkeye. I think what she wants is to be like her sister and do good like her sister did and follow in her footsteps. So now that the Avengers are a little more scattered, to Icarus's point, or the Eternals' point, like, they don't have a leader really anymore without Cap and Iron Man, so they're really very disjointed. So maybe she being Yelena, sees the Thunderbolts, like, as a way or as a team mechanism for her to do something similar to what her sister did, because that's kind of what, if memory serves, Valentina sold into FoCap, was like, well, yeah, you can't be in the Avengers, like, you killed a guy, but, you know, here's an opportunity to still do good.
Yeah, you have blood on your hands, but...
Yeah.
They're like, anti-heroes, essentially.
Yeah. So that's why I feel like I could still see Elena willing to overlook, like, Valentina's deception, because she still is giving her what she wants in the end, which is a way to live out her sister's legacy.
Well, and okay, I don't want to get too off of this, but I just actually wanted to bring up, I think that'd be an interesting place to put Bucky.
Yeah.
I think that'd be an interesting place to put his character, because I'm a little tired of the whole, like, I'm a side dude. Like, I think that'd be a cool place to put him. Regardless, moving forward, I just wanted to get that thought off my chest. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting what doors Hawkeye opens, because not that I want to overlook the show itself. I think it's going to be great, and I don't want to sit here and be like, anyway, moving past it, what does it do? But that's really the most important thing about these shows is what do they do? Because at the end of the day, Marvel is still always going to be focused on the big movies and setting up the big movies. So all of this, like I said, it can't just end with passing it to Kate Bishop, because that we already knew the Young Avengers are coming. We know it's happening. We've gotten like 5 of them at this point. So I'm just excited to see what else it sets up, along with saying goodbye to one of the last of the originals, because at this point 3 of them are dead. And Thor's off.
Wait, who else is... Tony and Nat are dead, but
Steve's dead,
who else
dude.
is dead? In your mind, maybe.
I hope he's dead. He's dead to me. But come on, everyone's like, he's dead. What are they gonna do with the guy? Although, that's a totally different rumor I'm not even gonna address right now. Listen,
All I'm saying is with Marvel, if they didn't...
Spider-Man predictions rumor I'll bring up.
If they didn't die on screen, they're not dead. No body, no death. I'm sorry.
Well, I hope he's dead.
I'm actually not sorry. Why am I apologizing?
He should die anyway. He made a terrible life choice. He could still be alive, but that was on him. He went into the past. Anyway.
We're not getting into that discussion
again. My point being, 3 of the original Avengers are now dead. We know Hulk will be in She-Hulk and possibly in the next Thor. We're saying goodbye to Hawkeye. Who am I missing? Who am I missing?
Thor.
Oh, Thor will be in the next, because I said Hulk will be in the next Thor, I, like, overrode the fact that Thor is a person. Yeah, Thor, of course, we know more of him. And I think it's ready, it's the time to say goodbye to Hawkeye, and here's another reason why, and not because, like I said, through my years, I've been anti-Hawkeye sometimes, because he's made me mad. I think, too, when I look at the Avengers, I see Cap Iron Man, I see Natasha Hawkeye, and I see Thor Hulk. And I think now Hawkeye's the odd man out.
Yeah.
And I think it's time, without his partner in crime, to move on. I mean, her replacement has come. I think it's ready to see his. I could see a great friendship between Yelena and Kate. I think that would be awesome. I think those two would be so sarcastic. They actually do have
very compatible, very compatible personalities.
Like, I put them to, like, if you're trying to create, like, an all-girl Avengers, go off, because, like, I'd love it, but, which, I mean, like, almost, like...
Oh my god, Shang-Chi's sister? Yes.
Yeah, but, like, look at all of them. Like, I mean, they really are, I mean, look at who's taking up, I mean, okay, with the exception of Sam as Cap, but, I mean, look who's taking up after Hulk. Look who's taking up after Thor. Like, we're
Riri taking up after Tony.
exactly. I mean, Sam
literally
would be
the only one who's, well, I know you're gonna hate what's about to come out of my mouth, but there is Captain Carter. Oh my gosh, fans, there's a really long pause here, and it's because Caitlin is looking like she's trying not to explode all over her walls.
Here's my issue with that. There has been a lot of talk that Henry Cavill wants to come in.
Oh, as Captain Britain?
Yes.
Don't even, I know.
And
I'm
I
literally,
would, in a heartbeat, rather see them do that than bring a character who no one cared about the first time she was in the MCU and no one's going to care about now.
I just really want them to shove DC's face in it because DC screwed him over and now Marvel's gonna welcome him with open arms, but that's just me being bitter.
Well, mine's bitter on the other side, so I get it. But
it's fine.
Either way, that's what, so I think it's gonna, like, I would see Yelena and Kate have a great relationship. I would love to see more of that. And I really hope, and I know, like, we've kind of talked a little bit about Young Avengers because of Hawkeye. I hope it's like a show. I hope we see it a little bit. I hope we see them interact with some of the real Avengers. Whoever the heck those are anymore.
Who knows?
And I would really appreciate eventually seeing some of these kids grow to be part of the real Avengers, and I think Kate would be a good one, especially because she's getting shown to be, like, younger, but obviously Haley Steinfeld is not 18, so I think that she's, like, literally the same age as Florence, so, or, like, right around the same age.
It's also interesting because she and Florence, meaning Kate and Yelena, are two of the only young Avengers who have really gotten to learn from a current adult Avenger. Like,
yeah.
Yes, I guess Billy and Sam a little bit, but, like, they're kind of off in the netherworld, so God only knows what they're learning out there.
They only, like, partially exist right now.
Yeah, so, like, and then Elijah, like, his grandfather really didn't obviously want to talk about that time in his life, like, so he wasn't out there teaching him that stuff, so I mean, maybe he'll learn from Sam, and that's part of Cap 4, I don't know. But thus far, the only two of well, I guess Elena's not really a young Avenger, she's more of a Thunderbolt. But so Kate's really the only young Avenger who's actually actively learned from a current Avenger, like, hands-on teaching.
Well, I just had a great thought, and now, like, my brain, in the meantime of trying to wait for you to finish, I lost it. Oh no, that was such a good thought too. And that's gonna annoy the heck out of me. Oh, well, first you also have Cassie. Cassie's learning from her dad.
Oh my god, I forgot. I still think of her as a 6-year-old because she had like 2 minutes of screen time as a 16-year-old, so give me a minute.
That was one thing I knew I wanted to say, but the actual thought that I had, I don't remember. Oh, I do remember it. Yes, and also, since this has kind of been an extended version of what will Hawkeye lead into and stuff, I also want to kind of pull back and be what else I wanted to address, because I know we talked a little bit about that. I would actually really like it to address Hawkeye's relationship with Wanda.
Yes.
Because I think that's something a lot of people thought since Endgame has been angry about, because he's the one who pushed her and said, you walk out those doors, you're an Avenger. He was always there for her, even in Civil War. And
he protected her.
Yes.
He came back really for her.
Yes. And so I would really like to see what happens a little bit, because he was that mentor figure for her. I mean, her freaking brother gave up his life for the guy, and he named his son after him because of it. So I would, and I know this is like, oh, it has nothing to do with the series, but it's like, I feel like you can't say goodbye to Hawkeye without somewhat addressing that he, like, did he at least call? Like, you know, like, did he not even bother? And I get it. Like, your family just came back, but it's like, you knew how messed up Wanda was. Like,
no, I'm so glad you brought that up, because it brings up a much, much bigger question. So, I guess if you're thinking about the blip, do they tell us what time of year the blip is? It's like summer, right? Or like spring?
I think I have always assumed it to be spring, but that could also just because Endgame came out in the spring. I like always was like, same. Oh, May.
That's why I always assume WandaVision is like it takes place in January, even though like chronologically that doesn't make sense, but that's like when it came out.
I mean, I think it has to be the spring, because if you think and this is hard because I know Far From Home came out like after, and then nothing, and then, you know, COVID and but he was still in school going into summer break when they were
And it was a few months after, right?
Yeah, so it's like early spring, maybe end of winter.
Okay. Well, I say all this to say, if Hawkeye is coming out in December, we're now almost a full year out from the blip.
Yeah.
So if he were to have said something to Wanda, it would have had to have been, actually, it would have had to have been in the days between the blip and WandaVision.
Mm-hmm.
In the week or so, because she only, like, exists as Wanda for that week, and then she becomes a Scarlet Witch and she's off doing whatever she's doing in the mountains.
Yeah.
So, like, it would have had to have been, so I don't know if you're gonna get what you want. Like, I want to see it too, but I don't know if we're gonna get that.
That's
unless
fair.
There's a one-liner where he basically says, like, I talked to Wanda and then she went off the grid. Like,
I'd be happy with a one-liner.
Like, he didn't have a very large, I'm just saying he didn't have a very large window in which to even get that closure with her, because she did what she did and it kind of had a breakdown, and then, you know, we all know what happened because we watched WandaVision.
Well, now I'm raising my hand because now if we're going to talk timeline, here are my timeline issues. I get it. He's partially retired. Okay. But here are some of my thoughts. Super soldiers running around in New York. He said not for me. The entire earth is shaking. Not for me. So I guess, like, looking at that, I'm like, okay, there's been things that have come out that I'm like, okay.
Yes, but to be fair, Kate, like, I guess that's the age-old question, you know, why when S.H.I.E.L.D. was falling didn't Iron Man come in? Like, sometimes you just gotta let it go and just say, it is the nature of the beast, but, and like, this is what it is.
I can understand if he's like, an earthquake in places that don't get earthquakes. Not for me. But I'm a little angry about the super soldiers in New York when he's in New York.
But to be fair, I think they're on a family vacation because he sends the family home and he stays in New York. So I think they're So my understanding is they're there to watch the Rogers musical. Like, they're there to visit New York for the holidays and go see, like, the Rogers Broadway show. So I don't think he's actually living in New York full time.
Okay. Then I give him a slight hall pass on that but still, I mean, I'm just saying.
Besides, Sam and Bucky had that all
but I'm also just intrigued because we're skipping all the way to Christmas now. So, in my mind, we're almost caught up to where we are in our lives and where Hawkeye is. We're like, what, a year or two back now?
2, yeah.
So we're almost caught up, and I can almost live with that. Where is this too? Because Peter's been shown to be Spider-Man, and this already happened prior to Hawkeye, so...
I don't know.
And, like, I know this is not always, like, the crux of a show, but, like, it's, like, understanding really where it is, and everything is what helps to understand what impacts it and what the implications are. So...
Yeah, well, did he interact with Spider-Man during Civil War?
I don't know. It's been a while since I've watched Civil War. I mean, but he knew of him because they were in the same battle, so it's not that they didn't know of each other.
Right, I guess I'm just wondering, like, would he care that he got unmasked? Or, I mean, like, you know?
Hawkeye seems to be the guy who goes out to protect the kids, so that would be surprising me that he didn't. Especially after the mentor of Iron Man was killed, or died.
Yeah.
And just two, because they happen to be in New York.
Yeah, I guess I'm just playing a little bit of
and they happen to be
advocate.
in New York, which is why I also bring it up, because obviously that's where Peter is. So, and granted, even if they are on a vacation, I am just intrigued.
Actually, here's a devil's advocate thought for you. So, I'm going to try to stay away from Spider-Man predictions as much as possible, but I do think Spider-Man and Hawkeye in this case are kind of happening. One kind of feeds into the other. I actually think that No Way Home actually happens before Hawkeye, and I'll tell you why. You see Peter going into school, and he's still very much dealing with the fallout of being unmasked, which obviously happens at the end of Far From Home. And that, to me, feels like it wouldn't last 6 months of people hating you. Like, people don't hate in that many numbers for that long.
Okay.
You know? So I guess I'm just wondering if it takes place before Hawkeye, which makes the whole multiverse thing very confusing because multiverse
of madness. I was
going to
say, do you want me to play devil's advocate towards you? Because what about the multiverse then? So
no, I definitely was calculating it in. I just, none of, like, 1 and 1 don't equal 2, like Marvel.
I think
just need a
until
little
we
help.
can have pure confirmation of where Spider-Man is, it's hard to understand its implications on everything else. And I mean, I think we ran into this problem once before, and I think we're going to keep running into it, unfortunately, is it could, like, when they were starting phase 1, it could be messy. And it also, it didn't need to all gel. The issue is I think for a long time they weren't even clear about what things we were seeing. Like, I mean, I don't think we got an actual answer about WandaVision until, like, later, because we could assume, but then we were like, did she wait a week? Did she wait a month? Did she go, like, and then we didn't know how long she had people under her control. Didn't know how, I don't think that's ever been answered. I don't think we know how long Westview's was up and then down. I don't think that was ever answered. So, we got that Eternals happens during Falcon and Winter Soldier time. So I'm like, okay. But...
And then I think Shang-Chi's a little after that, right?
I think. But, like, I think it's hard because we are playing with this blip and trying to set everything up, and we're going into a multiversal war.
Yeah, I also think one thing that we can't forget that we're still dealing with is the fact that all of these shows were supposed to come out last year, so they're, like, shows and many of these movies, so it seems very, like, disjointed in the sense that they're coming out and, like, not really in order, which did happen, you know, in the prior phases a little bit, but it was a little easier to decipher.
Yeah.
But I think we're still dealing with the backlog of content, and so that's not really helping clarify the matter in terms of, like, where things actually fit.
Well,
in the
and to be
timeline.
fair, the first phase, if we really look at it, other than, like, the Avengers and, like, team-ups, we had 3 main heroes that we saw.
Yeah.
So far in phase 4, we've now had Wanda, Bucky, Sam, we've had Loki, who's that's in a completely different, who knows where the heck that is.
We've can't even wrap my head around
the Eternals, we've had kind of...
Shang-Chi.
Well, yeah, I was going to get to Shang-Chi, but I was getting to Black Widow first. Kind of not Black Widow, but also kind of because of Yelena, Shang-Chi, and now we're getting introduced to Hawkeye, but we've technically already been seeing Spider-Man already, and now we're going to see him again. Then we're seeing Strange.
Yeah.
So I think that's the problem. That's where all the disjointed, and that's kind of why I wonder if Miss Marvel was partially moved because of that. And because maybe some things are wrapping more up than we think they're going to. But that's why I think Hawkeye is in some way, shape, or form connected to Spider-Man regardless. Whether he, like, it was present when maybe he was going, like, something was happening or what. He's going to be introducing something for Spider-Man. Because they can't just leave it at the Young Avengers. And with Spider-Man being the only thing I know that is confirmed to have 3 more to come and possibly shows involved.
Yeah.
I'm thinking with Organized Crime, Kingpin, that's what's coming out of Hawkeye. I'm excited to see Hawkeye, but I'm like stressed.
Yeah,
because it doesn't make me feel better about where we're at in the MCU.
No, agreed. I feel like every time we do any kinds of predictions or reactions, we're always like, we're going to get an answer this time. And then we're always like, we don't have an answer this time. And then we just basically end up telling you guys how stressed we are. And I'm sorry about that. We don't want to push our stress onto you. We love you guys, but we're stressed. We're not going to hide it from you. It's just the truth.
Well, that's how I feel. It's like, I want to do just like what we did even for Loki. You know, and even if we were so wrong, I like to be able to go through the trailer and be like, so we saw this. What did this mean? We saw this. What did this mean? And it's like, I don't even feel like I can look at the Hawkeye trailer and say, like, we saw this. What does it mean? Because I saw battle kind of scenes. Cool. I saw, like, their interaction with Kate. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just confused. I'm confused and I want answers and I don't know that Spider-Man's gonna help. I will say on a quick side note, I did, while we were recording, just receive a text, actually a series of texts from a friend who has watched the trailer.
Oh gosh.
They were in all caps. He sent me the link, so it's real and it's happening, friends. Live as we speak and as we record this for you. So that's super exciting. I'm gonna hold off watching until we record because you guys definitely don't want to hear my screams in your ears right now.
Especially after I'm ready to, like, go off, just because I really do, and I know we kind of just said this, but I want to just rephrase it again and again. I would love to give a full predictions, you know? And, like, what I love and hate, and I think we kind of said this with Eternals, is because Marvel's doing this, here's this, but you don't know what else is happening at all. You have no clue what's going on. I mean, even the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it was like every footage from the trailer was up until, like, I think the 4th or 5th episode, and the last 1 or 2 episodes, we knew nothing.
Yeah.
So I think, like, I know we talked about with the trailer, you don't know what to expect. I know we didn't see Elena, well, no duh, but we know she's coming and stuff like that. But I would love to give, like, a full in-depth, here is the trailer, here's what we're doing, but really all I can do is, this is what it might open.
Yeah.
This is where this might lead us.
I mean, to be fair, those are predictions in and of themselves. I feel like that's the best we can do at this point. The way Marvel has structured so much, it's so hidden, I think, more so than in previous. Let me rephrase this. I think every property in Phase 4 has had the same level of misdirection and secrecy that Infinity War and Endgame had.
Yeah.
I think up until those movies, I don't want to say Marvel was ever transparent, because they definitely were not, but there was more transparency about what we were going to see and what was going to happen in a movie.
Yeah.
And I think ever since those movies, they have been so good at hiding the true intention of the movie and the true plot of the movie. So
No, for sure.
It's definitely made our job a lot harder. But at the same time, I think I really like the surprises. Like, I really enjoyed the twist in Eternals and how that completely caught me off guard.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah, I liked also, I mean, Shang-Chi was also very, far removed from the trailer, so I am not upset about it. It just makes our life a little harder when it comes to these predictions, and I think we have to go a little more broad stroke than maybe you and I would like, Kate, but I mean, I'm not going to complain about it.
Can I ask a slightly messed up question?
Sure.
You want a prediction? You want a theory? I'm going to ask it. Does Hawkeye make it home for the holidays?
Oh, I don't think they're going to kill another Avenger on Christmas. I just don't. I think, to your point, we've lost 3 of them already. And let me point out this. We've lost 2 to a definite death. We watched them die. Steve, you can say, is a death. Sure, I know you like to think the way you like to think. I like to think of him living his life in the sunset. So maybe we get one other Avenger that gets to go live his life in the sunset. And also I think we brought this up in Black Widow. I don't see Clint dying because it negates Natasha's sacrifice. And I think a lot of people who were really upset by the fact that she was killed instead of him would be even more upset if the reason she died then was to save a man who only ended up living another year. Like, she wanted him to go home to his family, so he needs to have the opportunity to do that in order for her sacrifice to pay off. So I think there's a bunch of reasons why I think he gets to go home.
Well, I'm gonna say this. I would like him to live for you bring up good points. Mine is, I think he would, and I can't believe I'm going to say this. I really hope Marvel doesn't do away with Hawkeye. But in the sense that he does do his retirement, but he is a mentor towards not just Kate, but even for the Young Avengers. He rebuilds some of the Avengers. Like, I could see, because I mean this in the nicest of ways, but what is Hawkeye's legacy?
Yeah.
He really doesn't have one. And I don't mean that in a rude way, but look at what Cap, what Tony, even what Natasha left behind, and Hawkeye's got kind of nothing. So it would mean a lot to me, and I think it would be a great way to really wrap up his character if, okay, he retires, this was his big, last huzzah, he passes on his torch, but, we're not done seeing him. He's gonna come in, maybe he will help the Young Avengers, and, because you can't tell me these kids are gonna stumble on each other. Maybe he helps them form, something of that nature.
Maybe he plays a Nick Fury role.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because obviously right now Nick Fury is up in space doing his own thing. So
we're not even going to get into that
no,
because
and
I don't want to talk about it.
But I'm just saying. So he's doing his own thing. I would really like to see him be that mentor role for the Young Avengers. I think that'd be interesting, and especially since I think we predicted a long time ago we're getting the Young Avengers probably in a show more than we'll probably see them in a movie.
Yeah.
Just because even the names tied to it, I couldn't see Marvel, like the biggest name is probably Haley, so I couldn't really see Marvel making a film out of them.
Not to mention, they have, I mean, not that the slate's not always in flux, but the slate does not have a movie for them, and I know there's a couple of unnamed on there, but...
We got other heroes we're worrying about.
Well, and I think they're unnamed because they're direct correlations of other movies, or like direct spin-offs or whatever you want to call them, and I just don't see them taking one of those spots for a Young Avengers when there's going to be a bigger name. Especially they haven't even marked the X-Men yet down on the calendar. I'm sorry, but one of them is the X-Men, so
and that's why,
you're just not,
for
it's
me,
not the same caliber.
I see that as, we'll probably get it as a show, and I think that would be an ideal place to keep him at that point. You know, he leads them or helps them as a mentor. Like, he doesn't need to be in every episode, but it's a part for him because I think that's his legacy finally. There's something for him to leave behind. And so I would really love to see that's what comes out of Hawkeye for Hawkeye. I don't want to see him gone. And maybe that's a part of me also just holding on to some of the original 6 because I love them, but it's also just, I don't think I can just sit there and be like, oh, he's off with his family while, like, everyone else is dealing with the world blowing up.
Yeah.
Like, and I also don't see Clint being the kind of person who can just sit there. I mean, even during Civil War, he was supposed to be retired. He was like, well, I had to get off my butt.
Yeah.
Like,
you made me leave my farm for this, yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't even, like, a real threat. They were just fighting each other. So, I would have to, hopefully, like, I truly am, that's my biggest prediction coming out of this. And not even prediction, but just like hope, theory, manifestation, if you will, that he will continue to be involved, even if it's in a small part, but it's something to just give Hawkeye a proper legacy, especially to your point. He was he was the one who survived the sacrifice. You know, Natasha gave her life for him to live, and so I'd like, and this is gonna sound a little awful, but I'd like him to do something with his life. Like, you know.
No, I see what you're saying, yeah. I think I really like your idea, actually, of him taking on the Fury role for these kids. I think he's shown on many occasions he's really good with kids and, like, he gravitates towards them. So it could be a way for him to kind of bridge the gap between, like, being an Avenger and putting himself constantly in danger and, like, being there for his family. Like, it could literally be, like, not that it's, like, necessarily a 9 to 5, but, like, it's a little more 9 to 5 than the, like, role he had as an Avenger. So, yeah, I actually really love that.
Well, and as much as I've said this already, I love the boots on the ground. But right now, we're not looking at boots on the ground.
No.
Like, I love it, but we're not.
We're looking at Celestials visiting Earth.
Yeah.
Like, this is just not, no.
I'm not gonna see freaking Bucky floating in space anytime soon. If I do, my mind will be blown. I will owe everyone like $10. Like, if I see Bucky just floating
everyone
around,
gets $10. Nothing major, just 10.
I was gonna say 100, but I was like, if I really bite my words here, I'm screwing myself over. So, but I just like, you know, and I think that's been something we've been talking about every single time. Where are we connecting these? Because before it made sense, now it's like, I'm not seeing them floating in space. We got the Eternals, who are little aliens, like, Drew was a hot one, but like, but Eternals, I mean, Thena, a gorgeous one, like, you know what I mean? Like, we love them.
Can we bring up just a quick tie between, and I know we talked about this during one of the Eternals episodes, I believe it was the predictions, but everybody's talking about Makari and how awesome she was,
yes,
and how she's hard of hearing in the movie, but I think it's been confirmed, you talked about this, the hearing aids for Hawkeye, so that's bringing him a little bit closer to his comic book counterpart, who is completely deaf, I believe, in the comics.
Well, and I think in the trailer there's a reference to him being deaf as well. Because I think when he's trying to, like, jumpstart the car, and he's like, and I think he's saying it to be, like, funny on the fact that he's wearing his hearing aids, because he's saying, like, well, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Like, as she's saying, like, oh, I don't want to drive, like, blah, blah, blah. So I definitely, it's to your point, I had brought that up before, and I am really glad that they're making, if it is his last thing that he does, at least him being comic book accurate in that sense, finally, after 12 years.
I do think, too, I know you've talked about this a lot, how funny his comic book counterpart is.
Yeah.
I think they're starting to really allow that to live and breathe in the MCU version. I think we're seeing a lot more of the sass and and he has those lines in the Avengers, but he has so few lines in the Avengers, right? So, like, now he's finally starting to have actual dialogue that's, like, allowing him to show his personality.
Well, and they also... I don't love how they did Black Widow or Hawkeye in the first few movies they were in. Well, okay, I lied. The opposite. I didn't love how they did Hawkeye in the first few movies he was in. Loved how they did Black Widow in the first few movies she was in. Then they, like, flip-flopped. And I was like, no. Because...
Like, why can't they both just be done well at the same time?
Yes, because something that was always funny was, like, as a comic book person, because obviously I'm a big fan of that love triangle that happens, but Bucky is Bucky, and how he is, and just, like, because obviously traumatized. And Natasha has her own, and just has always been that very, like, a spy, I am an assassin. And then there was always Hawkeye, who was, like, literally the same thing, but he was, like, surfer dude vibes. So I just, like, I was a little angry, like, they flip-flopped them, because to your point, Hawkeye had great lines in some of the Avengers, but they, like, there needed to be more.
Yeah.
And he had the potential to be on hilarious, like, Thor-level hilarious, and with, like, certain one-lines, and they just kind of were like, it's fine.
Yeah. And I don't think it was Jeremy Renner. I think he wasn't given the material.
Oh, I agree. And I mean, I guess it doesn't help in Avengers. He's, like, half under mind control and damaged for half of it.
Oh, yeah. There's that.
Yeah. And I mean, even, like, we see him for 0.5 seconds in Thor, but even then, he's not really doing much.
Oh, yeah. That's his first time on screen, is Thor.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm excited because I also think that Haley is bringing a sarcastic kid to this, and I love it. I think the few, like, one-liners I've seen in the trailer already, I, like, was laughing my butt off. Like, I'm like,
so
just
funny.
Perfect. Like, perfect timing, even her facial expressions. So I'm excited. They seem to play off well with each other, and I'm excited to kind of see how he is almost forced into this mentorship. But I want to bring up one last thing.
Go for it.
That bothers me a little. I don't know to what degree they have record of what he was doing when he was Ronin. However, I will just point out, I can't see it was very kept on the record, considering he was going after the underground, and also, the world was a hot mess for 5 years, because even though, I mean, I think that's one of Thanos' points is, but you guys couldn't move on. And I think that's a true point. I mean, we see it even, like, with the boats all still surrounding the Statue of Liberty and everything. They couldn't move on. So I can't think they were, like, extensively covering murders. They were like, oh no, murders of bad guys. Who cares? Like, you know what I mean? So I'm a little intrigued to understand, and I really hope the show explains a little bit, and also this means that she was not snapped, by the way. That would mean that Kate was not.
Right.
But I'm a little intrigued to see, like, how'd she know it was Ronin? And, like, how'd she get the costume and, like, all of that background?
Yeah, no, I hope they go into that. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not as familiar with her comic arc, so I definitely don't have the answer for you, but I hope that for all of us who maybe are not following her in the comics, they do kind of give us that context and that background.
Well, I mean, we can do our research after this. I don't even know if that's how they actually meet in the comics, like...
Yeah.
That, because I love the MCU for this, but, they tend to cherry pick, so it's kind of like, for all I know, by the time Hawkeye's any sort of Ronin, it's like, so far in the future, we aren't, like, even aware what's happening, so...
Yeah, she's maybe, like, 35 and, like, has 3 kids of her own. Like, who knows?
Well, exactly.
They definitely like to mix and match continuities, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, and that's what I would really like to understand. I mean, like, she already uses the bow and arrow, so I kind of want to understand, like, has she always followed Hawkeye, and maybe that's how she knew about him. But also, think about, if they're gonna paint her as, like, maybe 18 at the oldest... Well, he would have been Ronin for 5 years. I can't see that her mother was out here letting her 13-year-old run around in the crime streets of New York and watch a dude murder bad dudes.
Yeah.
So.
I do think it's interesting, though. I mean, this is an assumption that she lives in New York, has grown up in New York.
Yeah.
Just based on where she finds him.
Or where he
She's
finds her
18.
more specifically.
Yeah, she's 18. 2023 is 11 years after Avengers, so she would have been 7 years old when the Chitauri attacked. So how do we know that she wasn't, saved by him? Or maybe she had a prime view of what he was doing. So there's some options there as to why he became her favorite out of all of them.
That's very true, and something you actually kind of brought to my attention when you started saying that. I want an overlap with Peter. Because, and I think I meant to say this earlier and I never remembered to, but it's gonna angerify me if you're gonna sit there and, like, bring in these young Avengers and then have Peter, who's, like, been inherently in sophomore year for, like, ever, and, like, not have him in any sort of involved with these people, especially if she was in New York when he finds her, then she most likely at least lives there now. So I'm like, there's no interaction, the fact that there's two superheroes of some sort in New York, and she knows Spider-Man's in New York, and I, like, you know what I mean? So I just, like, I need to eventually also see that, I think, because you're getting to the point where you have so many heroes that are now that younger age, where I'm like, do what you did with the Avengers and bring them together kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
Those are the ones I could expect seeing. Seeing a Spider-Man, seeing a Kate Bishop, seeing a Yelena. There's a team up there already starting.
Well, even Ms. Marvel is in, like, Jersey City.
That's what I mean. They're all too close to me to feel comfortable.
Yeah. It's the same thing with, like, a Shang-Chi and a Scott Lang. They're both in San Francisco. Are you telling me that you're not even gonna reference that in Quantumania? Like, come on. Or the fact that Shang-Chi,
Well, to be fair,
I'm
though,
sure,
Shang-Chi
saw
was
Giant Man
less...
in the freaking bay.
Yeah, I mean, but he was a little less... The prominence of his, like, real wasn't in San Francisco. And I guess if you look at also even Scott's stuff, it was, like, it was personal. Like, it wasn't really, like...
But he still was Giant Man in the bay. Like,
well,
don't just, like, that doesn't just, like, not happen.
Well, yeah, but no, fair, but I'm just saying, like, they don't necessarily need to always make that connection with those two, especially just because, like, very different, but with New York, especially, but, like, New York of all things, you're not gonna tie some of these people together.
Yeah.
Like, and especially now, like, we have to assume that she would know Peter's identity, so she would know how to find him.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, if this girl knew Hawkeye's background of Ronin and could find a uniform or make a uniform that looks exactly like his and somehow end up fighting the right people, like...
Unless, and I don't want to get into this, but unless Strange's spell worked. Or I'm going to throw something else out here. Okay, rude. I'm going to throw something else out here that's going to blow everybody's mind, and it honestly makes my brain hurt. But what if Hawkeye takes place after Spider-Man, this does not take place on our timeline?
I knew you were going to say, that's what I thought you were going to say originally. That's what I genuinely thought. I'm not going to endorse that one. I will possibly endorse the first one. I don't endorse the second because I think Marvel would be too bold. And I think that could mess up so much if they're trying to bring the Young Avengers in, then now they're going to have to because think about this, the timelines are not going to be a mess forever. So I think that's too messy. And it's supposed to be our Hawkeye. I mean, he talks about plenty of things that you could tell are related to, like, even his family's like, we've missed all these Christmases together because they were snapped.
Well, yeah, but think about it this way. You know how the timelines work. Everything goes. One change. So it would be the same.
I need you to stop talking. Because
look, I'm not saying
No. I will happily endorse possibly the first one, that Strange's spell works. Fine. That's fine. I could actually get behind that. That would be a very interesting thought. But you trying to bring timelines into this, I will immediately stop talking to you. Because I am not playing that terrible Loki game that we've been playing since that stupid show came out, and we've been dealing with it. Until Multiverse of Madness comes out, I don't want to deal with it.
Okay, two things. One, I'm not saying that I personally subscribe to that theory. I just think it needs to be said because we are, in fact, let's talk Marvel fan theory, so I don't think we can just leave one on the table that's big and out there.
I think it can be left on the table.
Or just coming out of my brain or whatever.
Be left outside in the trash.
No. Okay, it just needed to be said for all the fans to ponder on. Now, I totally lost my second my second My second point was, you are going to have to deal with the multiverse before the Multiverse of Madness, and it's called Spider-Man No Way Home.
But I'm looking forward to that because I'm expecting to see 3 Spider-Men. And if they try to throw anything else into that movie, I might blow my brains out because at that point, I can't handle more. But, and it's also been confirmed you're obviously going to have to see something because we have old Doc Ock, we have old Goblin. Like, they're not just coming out of the woodwork.
Old Electro, too, from Andrew.
Like,
yeah.
They didn't do that on accident. Like,
yeah.
But, no, and that's fair, but I like I said, that movie's already so jam-packed because we always knew it was going to be Spider-Man because we already had 3 of them, that I was like, no, that's fine. But I mean, like, anything else, any other consequence that's not about the Spider-Man, I don't want to worry about it until I see whatever Wanda and Doctor Strange get themselves up to, and even Loki, if he's in that, in the Multiverse of
I'm pretty
Madness.
sure he is, but we'll address that at a later date.
Yeah, because I can't do that.
I don't like it either because it makes my brain hurt. I just felt like it needed to be said for anyone who may have been having similar thoughts.
No, I definitely think the first one's a for sure possibility. But that doesn't mean that he's not, it doesn't look like he's not having it looks like one of his battles is the freaking bridge where they've been on every time we've seen anything. So, like, the only thing that's ever been spoiled has been the bridge scene. The only shot we see half the time is the bridge scene.
It's literally, the poster is the bridge scene.
Yeah, I know.
I'm starting to wonder if it's 2 hours and 38 minutes of the bridge.
That's what I'm wondering. But, like, my point being, that's New York still. Regardless of whether or not the spell was already put, that they forgot who he was, she still is in the same city as Spider-Man, who's having a very obvious fight on a bridge.
Yeah. You make a very valid point. I'm not going to deny you there. I think there does need to be a little bit more connection between them, just even for the fans' own sanity, because right now all of the disparate franchises are making my head spin a little bit, and I think a little bit of connection, even if it's just like how they planted Hawkeye and Thor, or like, I don't know, obviously, like, having Howard Stark in, like, the first Avenger, like, let's
planted the seed.
Yeah, like, let's, even if they're not big team-up movies, like,
well, here's another question.
Have a little bit?
Where's Hawkeye's farm? Do we have an answer to that?
I pictured the Midwest.
Great.
But
if you're going to picture the Midwest, you know who's hanging out in the Midwest? Yelena, at her sister's grave in Ohio.
Was that Ohio?
I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on it, but she's in the Midwest. So, I really feel like it was Ohio.
You might be thinking Ohio because that's where they were at the beginning of the movie.
Isn't that where they said that? Well, either way, Valentina said about her, she's like, I hate the Midwest air or something like that. Either way, she's in the Midwest.
Okay.
So she's in America.
I was just questioning the exact location of Ohio, but okay.
What do you mean the exact location of Ohio? It's right next to PA.
No. That's not what I meant. Whether the exact location in the Midwest was Ohio, there are many states in the Midwest. I just wasn't sure.
Because I was like, Ohio is the Midwest. I don't know if I agree with that because it feels wrong, but it is considered the Midwest.
Okay, good talk about geography. Clearly, it's not our strong suit.
Well, you're the one who brought up... Well, I guess I brought up New York, but you brought up San Francisco, so I was bringing up the Midwest, since we don't talk about it often because nothing tends to happen there. So...
Well, if New Asgard is a thing, that's over what, Missouri? Ever? That ever happens?
One of those states.
Right now, it's located in, like, Norway, right? It's where they are. Where Valkyrie's the king or queen.
I really refuse to watch Endgame, so couldn't tell you.
Well, we'll circle back on that one. But I'm good. Are you good?
Yeah, I'm ready to watch this show. And also, keep in mind, we're getting 2 episodes at once. Just want to put that out there before we wrap up. We are getting WandaVision era kind of thing where we're getting the first 2 episodes back to back. So it'll actually only really be 5 weeks of Hawkeye.
Yes, in which one of them Spider-Man comes out, so that's super fun.
So
Woo-hoo!
Be prepared for chaos. Yes. That's going to be just hard.
One quick little note, if you guys heard us referencing the trailers, which we did a lot, obviously, in this episode, they will be linked in the show notes for you, so if you're a little confused about what we're referencing, there's some quick links there for you, so that you can follow along. I know you've listened to it by now, all the way through, but if you want to go back and watch and then re-listen, feel free, once you have the trailers fresh in your mind. In terms of what's coming up, we have a pretty full next few weeks leading up till the end of the year. Obviously, Hawkeye premieres next week, so we'll be covering, as to Katie's point, episodes 1 and 2 next week, and then moving along the episodes weekly up until episode 6. Once Spider-Man gets a little closer, we will have 2 episodes the week before Spider-Man and 2 episodes the weekend that it premieres to discuss the predictions and reactions.
No one's ready for the reactions.
No, there's going to be a lot of screaming.
Headphone users, beware.
Yeah, turn it down, guys, for those episodes. But yeah, so we have a lot of great content to take us down and out through the rest of 2021. We're super excited. If you guys want to make sure that you're keeping up with everything that's going on, please, please, please subscribe to the podcast. If you are a fan of ours, please let everyone know. Tell all your fellow Marvel fans that you found this awesome podcast. Share it on social, all of that good stuff. Leave us a rating or a review on your preferred podcast platform. And of course, please follow the blog as well. We have a lot of great content. This week, we'll also be breaking down, or maybe by the time you listen to this, we will have broken down all of the great news that came out of Disney Plus Day. Some of our reactions there. Not as much as we thought this year, but still some good nuggets coming out of there, so we'll talk about that on the blog. And of course, Katie will talk about the Twitter.
Yes, so we have our Twitter, of course. I spent a lot of time on it. So it's Let's Talk MFT. Go follow it. If you ever want to get in contact or have any sort of theories shared or talked about, that is definitely the best way to do it. We're very active on it, and we are always looking for new theories. We obviously share some of our own. We retweet a lot of information, so if you're also trying to keep up with things, I'm always retweeting Marvel news, even the rumors, because theories usually come from rumors. So just make sure you're keeping up with that, because there's so much always happening on that between us just retweeting and sharing, and also just us tweeting in general. So go follow us on that. And it's also a one-stop shop, because if you would like to get right to the podcast when it comes out, come out right to the blog posts when they come out, they are shared pretty much immediately as soon as they air. So follow us on Twitter and you can find everything in one spot. But as we've kind of said, the end of the year, especially because we have no idea what January brings us, is going to be chaotic and a lot. And we love that, because that means that we're getting a lot of Marvel, but that also means that there's a lot of content coming your way, both with Hawkeye and, of course, Spider-Man, which we've all been waiting for like ever in our lives. So that there's a lot happening, which means a lot of our shows are going to be coming out too. So there's a lot of content. Keep up with it, because Marvel just blew your mind. So let's talk about it.